Hello, welcome everyone. I'm Charlotte Gibson, president of the Charlottesville chapter of the National Organization for Women. And I'm so glad you all are joining us tonight on Women's Equality Day for our House of Delegate Candidate Forum. As a bonus tonight, we also have video messages we have a live appearance from Hala, Ayala, and video messages from Mark Herring and Terry McAuliffe. I want to thank our VP for Action and Programs, Kathy Falzer. Give a wave, Kathy, for helping organize this program, and to Amy Loffer, who we all know and love. Kathy is our VP for Action and Programs, and Amy is the VP for Community Development of Charlottesville Now, and a former Virginia Senate candidate. And Amy is going to be our moderator tonight. But before we turn it over to Amy, we have a few announcements. First, be aware the meeting is being recorded. It's going to be posted later on our YouTube channel, and you can find that link in the chat. I want to alert you all to an important action this weekend. Dozens of organizations, including NOW, will be participating in a rally for voting rights in Washington, D.C. and in cities around the country. And Charlottesville NOW will be participating in the DC rally, and we invite anyone who can to join us there. Today is an important day in women's history. It marks 101 years since women earned the right to vote, but the fight for full equality obviously continues. Earlier today, some of us were in Washington, DC, rallying for the Equal Rights Amendment, and Doug and Kathy and I literally just got home 6:30 today. So if we seem a little bedraggled, it's because we are. And Kabi Hoffman should be joining us. She's still in DC. It's the closest we've ever come to the Equal Rights Amendment becoming the law of the land. Last year, as you all know, Virginia became the final state needed to ratify. Now the battle is at the federal level, involving the US Senate and the US Archivist and the Department of Justice. And lawyers are working on cases that are making their way through the courts. And we urge everyone here tonight to influence the court of public opinion by talking about the importance of the ERA with your friends and colleagues and on social media. We're going to be posting some photos of the rally today, and please do share those around. Today also marks the anniversary of Charlottesville NOW's annual feminist book drive to benefit the Jefferson Madison Regional Library System. It started in 2013 with our donation of just 2 books to the library in commemoration of Women's Equality Day. And since then, many members and supporters have joined in donating books each year. Tonight, we wrap up our book drive for this year, and we invite everyone to take action for equality by donating 1 or more books to help lift up women's history and voices. You can easily choose and purchase books through the link to the wish list that we'll put in the chat, and there are books for all ages in both fiction and nonfiction. Another action for women's equality you can take today is to become a member of NOW, obviously. We'd love to welcome you as a supporting member of NOW, Charlottesville NOW, and you can find the link to join in the chat. Our next chapter meeting will be in late September, date to be determined, at which we are gonna abandon programming and just phone bank for candidates, and everyone is welcome to participate. And finally, as we begin our forum tonight, I want to remind you that the candidates really need your financial support, and you can find links in the chat. I hope all the campaigns are here with their links to put in the chat to donate and volunteer for their campaigns. And you can also make donations to the Virginia NOW PAC, which gives funds to pro-equality candidates around the Commonwealth. All of our candidates this evening have been endorsed by the Virginia NOW PAC. Woohoo! And now it's time to hear from the candidates. So after opening statements and a roundtable discussion, there'll be time for Q&A. So please put your questions in the chat as they occur to you. And thanks to our board member, Virginia Doherty. Virginia, wave your hand, who will be moderating the chat tonight. So Amy, I'll turn it over to you to begin our candidate forum.
All right, actually, so I think what we'll do is as soon as Lieutenant Governor candidate Hala Ayala comes, we will have her give her remarks, but we are going to start off with, we're going to go in order of district number. So we have District 25 is Jennifer Kitchen. So Jennifer, you have 2 minutes.
Hello, everyone. I'm Jennifer Kitchen. I'm running to represent the 25th district. As Charlotte said, that's parts of Albemarle, Augusta, and Rockingham counties. I live in Augusta County. I've lived in Augusta County my whole life. Rural Virginia is a true passion for me. I have 2 children. I have an 11-year-old and a 13-year-old. And one of the big reasons why I'm running is I do not want them to grow up with the same issues I did, which is very much what is happening now, because we don't have anyone representing the everyday rural person in a meaningful way, in a way that we deserve. So I became a community organizer by accident in 2017. I helped organize some buses to DC for the Women's March. I got back, I started a little, what I thought was going to be a little Facebook group to hold people accountable to the first 10 actions over the first 100 days. It turned into a group of over 1,000 people for my community. I just found an area that needed to be organized. I stepped into that role. We've organized since then for criminal justice reform, for reuniting families that have been separated at the borders, and many other issues in our community. In 2018, I worked for a PAC knocking doors. I knocked 11,000 rural doors that year, doing deep canvassing, and I had the same conversation on every door. And again, I quickly realized that that's because no one is knocking these doors, having these important conversations, asking what matters to you, what can we change that would affect your daily life. And at that point, we had been represented in the 25th district by the same person for about 27 years. And so I decided to run for office to be the person that could bring a different voice to Richmond to prioritize our communities. Some of the issues I'm running on: rural broadband internet access, healthcare access for rural communities. It's a huge issue, and prioritizing our infrastructure. Is that 2 minutes?
That's right on the nose.
Okay.
That's awesome. All right, we are moving on then to, the 30th district, which is Annette Hyde.
Thank you, Amy. Thank you, Charlottesville Now, for having this forum tonight. I'm Annette Hyde, a yoga teacher living in Madison County. I'm a volunteer, an activist, the mother of 2 adult sons, and the wife of a small business owner. I'm running for the House District 30 seat because it's time we have a representative that works for rural Virginians' best interests, and more importantly, believes in the government they are a part of. Rural Virginia matters, and my district needs someone who will fight for what it deserves. I first ran for the seat in 2017, but I lost the nomination in a convention by 1 vote. In 2019, I ran for the state Senate against Emmett Hanger because the people in my district hadn't had a general election choice in 12 years. Although my fellow rural Democratic candidates lost our races, we helped to win the General Assembly majority. I'm one of the founding members of the Culpeper Madison Orange chapter of Moms Demand Action, and later was its legislative lead. I'm an active member of the Culpeper branch of the NAACP. I also serve on the Virginia Career Works Piedmont Workforce Development Board representing Madison County. The 30th district is full of history. Culpeper County was chartered in 1749. A 17-year-old surveyor named George Washington was commissioned that year to survey and plot the town and the county. James Madison's home, Montpelier, is in Orange County. President Herbert Hoover bought land in the mountain area of Madison and built his summer camp there. His official visit to the town of Madison in August 1929 is commemorated annually. The 3 counties I would represent maintain their rich agricultural traditions and are the homes to many award-winning wineries and breweries. Many families from Northern Virginia are choosing to make the 30th House District their home because of lower housing and living costs. And I look so forward to participating in this discussion honoring Women's Equality Day.
Thank you so much, Annette. And that was right on the nose too. Then we are going to the 56th. That's Blakely Lockhart.
Hello, everyone. My name is Blakely Lockhart, and I'm running for the Virginia House of Delegates for District 56, which, as it was mentioned before, it's the west end portion of Henrico County, the eastern half of Goochland, almost all of Louisa, and a small part of Spotsylvania County. So it's a very spread out area. And I'm from the Henrico portion of the district. But I grew up in the district and with the values of hard work, honesty, and service to the community. And that is exactly what I'm bringing with me throughout my campaign and to the legislature. So my background is in research and neuroscience. So I won't bore you with the details about hormones and Alzheimer's and addiction, but obviously if you want to know more, ask me anything. I'm excited to talk about brains. But I also believe firmly that we need more representation from different backgrounds in the Virginia legislature to make sure our legislation is inclusive. So yay for science. That's where I come from. But while I was at school at my university, I reactivated my NAACP chapter on my campus to hold discussions about accountability with local law enforcement, our university administration, and local leaders. And that launched me into a completely different world of activism where I got really interested in how I can serve everyone in our community and specifically what's happening in my own district. So my campaign is historic for a couple reasons. One, I'm the first woman of color to ever run in the district, and we know representation matters. So I'm really excited to celebrate with you all today. And for the second reason is that I will become the youngest person to ever serve in the Virginia legislature in our Commonwealth. Yes, so I'll become the first member of Generation Z to serve, and I'm incredibly excited to do that. I echo everything that was said before me by these incredible candidates. Rural Virginia matters, and we need our legislature to really step up and represent our rural areas. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I was thinking that Hala might be here, but she's not. And so we will move on to the 57th. We have Delegate Sally Hudson.
Hi, everyone, and thanks for being with us this evening. My name is Sally Hudson, and I serve the 57th District in Charlottesville City and parts of Albemarle County. I am the first woman to have the honor of serving Charlottesville in the House, and I've also been so grateful and honored to be part of a historic era in the General Assembly. We now have more women in that body than ever before in history, but it's still only 30%, and that's nowhere near enough. We have women in leadership roles unlike ever before, the first female Speaker of the House and House Majority Leader, first Senate Pro Tem, and you can tell how those women lead differently by design. The body has become both so much more diverse and empathetic, engaged with parts of the community that have so long been ignored, and it's panning out in practice in legislation. We're seeing dramatic progress on all of the issues that NOW has been championing for decades, whether that's repealing barriers to reproductive health care access or banning discrimination based on sexual orientation, allowing women to breastfeed in the workplace, and doing more that we can to help women and parents and families thrive, expanding childcare access, raising the minimum wage, empowering teachers and women of all stripes to collectively organize at the local level. So in all of those ways, both symbolic and deeply practical, I've been proud to serve over the last 2 years, and I'm looking forward to keeping up the great work, and sure hope to have more of these great women by our side so that we can get all that more good work done.
All right, thank you. We move on to the 58th, which is Sara Ratcliffe.
Hi there. Thanks so much, Amy. And just a little shout out to the fact that I like that Sally wants us all to join her, because I think she's been carrying that water for a while, and the more of us we can get there, the better. My name is Sara Ratcliffe, and I am running to represent the 58th District, which, as Charlotte said, runs from Rockingham County up over Shenandoah National Park, down 60 miles long through Fluvanna County, stretching across 4 counties. It has a really strong mix of rural families and legacy farmers, as well as some suburban areas and exurbs of Charlottesville. I spent 30 years as a professional advocate, the last dozen or so leading a national women's rights organization. And I learned a bunch of things. And one of them is that state legislators affect the daily lives of our individual constituents more than almost any other level of government. 5 years ago, my husband and I bought a house, found our dream house really out in the country, just north of Charlottesville in Greene County, where I live still today. And during the pandemic, we were able to move out here full time. My story is really and the reason that I chose to run this race, because my story is one of rising. I was raised by a single mom, an ardent feminist, who taught me to fight for women's rights while she was trying to struggle to put food on the table. We grew up, I grew up in a very small Section 8 apartment, and I went from Section 8 housing to be the CEO of a national international organization. That rise is not one I take for granted, and I was given many opportunities along the way. I want to make sure that everyone has the right and the ability to rise, to reach their potential and to thrive. I believe that we have far more that connects us. Oh, is that it? I'm at time. Sorry.
Sorry. But
That's
you will
okay.
have a chance as we go further. And next we have the 59th district, and that is Dr. Ben Moses.
Thank you, Amy, and I apologize, everybody. If I cut out early, I am still at work. Pardon my appearance. I'm inside the hospital, actually just next to the operating room, and if I get called, I have to be ready to go in. So one of my partners is listening out. Trust me, I don't have somebody under anesthesia right now that isn't being cared for. I am an intensive care unit doctor, and throughout the pandemic, I've been at the bedside taking care of COVID patients, and it was about this time last year that I realized my time in the ICU, taking care of one person at a time, I felt like I needed to be able to make a bigger difference. And so I'm running for the 59th, which is a large rural district southwest of here. It extends from southwest Albemarle down through Buckingham, Appomattox, and Campbell, and part of Nelson County. And the fact is that this part of Virginia, we desperately need broadband internet access. We need paid child and family leave. We need better options for childcare. And, you know, I think that my mission as a future delegate in the House of Delegates is to support healthcare in every way that I can. And, you know, I can't go without saying this. Women's healthcare is healthcare. I've been in medicine for 20 years. And throughout a pandemic, I can tell you we've been lucky to have our governor as a physician, but this is not over. And while I'm grateful for Governor Northam for his leadership and his service to our community across Virginia, we desperately need more medical voices like mine at the table so that we can serve all Virginians with dignity and respect and ensure that people have access to the care that they need throughout this pandemic and, God willing, past it. Thank you so much for having me here today. I'm really excited to be surrounded by these truly amazing leaders, and I'm grateful for the opportunity to speak with you.
Thank you. And we so appreciate the work that you're doing. Just, I think that needs to be recognized. It's such a tough time right now. So thank you so much. And thank you for taking the time to be with us. And I also see now that we have Lieutenant Governor candidate delegate Hala Ayala with us. Delegate Ayala, we're just kind of having opening statements, talking about our previous activism, etc. Thank you so much for making time to be with us tonight.
Thank you for having me. Delegate Ayala, 51st District. What a historic moment we're in at, for the Democrats. Even though this is nonpartisan, I love my NOW sisters, but I am the Democratic nominee for Lieutenant Governor. We are very excited about the future of Virginia. I just want to put a pin in that, Amy, and just extend my thoughts and prayers to the service members and troops and all Americans and Afghan refugees who are trying to get out of Afghanistan now, and just the devastating news we've heard over the last 24 to 48 hours. So my heartfelt prayers and thoughts are with our troops and our Afghan refugees. So just a moment there just to acknowledge everything that's happening in the world around us, and just to also impress upon you how important those freedoms are that we are talking about today, that we're fighting for. Just to even be represented in the House of Delegates or as Lieutenant Governor do tie into service of our Commonwealth as well as our country. So that is just, I just wanted to share that off the, just at the top of this. And then secondly, I don't know if we have time later on to go on further, but today is also the 101 anniversary that we're celebrating, with the 19th Amendment afforded, women the right to vote. And this is the when we're talking about history and just all that encompasses, when you see historic numbers represented in the House of Delegates, and me being one of them, and then probably making history this fall, hopefully, fingers crossed, this is just a historic acknowledgement and day as we are communing to talk about our campaigns, what the future of this Commonwealth is looking like, and the things we must do to make equality truly equitable, especially for women, Black and brown women across this entire Commonwealth and nation. So with that, Amy, I will put a pin in that. I am the Lieutenant Governor candidate. I will put my information in the chat. I'll stick around if you have any questions.
Thank you so much. This is part of why we picked this day, Women's Equality Day, to celebrate all of, the work that's done in the past and what we can do for the future of the Commonwealth. So with that being said, we are moving into our kind of what I hope to be a conversation. Is that right? Or should we have Attorney General Mark Herring's video right now? Are we
ready for that? Our IT guy?
Yeah, that's what I'm wondering.
We're good. Ready to go.
Okay, so we are going to hear some remarks from our Attorney General candidate and our current Attorney General, Mark Herring.
Hello everyone, Attorney General Mark Herring here. I'm proud to have served you and all Virginians as your Attorney General for the last 8 years. And I believe the Attorney General should be the people's lawyer, fighting to keep Virginians safe and ensure justice, equality, opportunity for all. I grew up in Loudoun County, was raised by a single mom, and I remember her telling me growing up, when you see a problem in your community, you have a responsibility to try and fix it. That's why over the last 8 years as Attorney General, advancing women's rights has been one of my biggest priorities. You all at the Charlottesville chapter of the National Organization for Women have been instrumental in helping advance women's rights and creating true societal change right here in Virginia. So I want to thank each and every one of you for your hard work and dedication to eliminate discrimination and ensure that women have equal rights and opportunities. One of my proudest moments as Attorney General has been working to have the Equal Rights Amendment recognized as a part of the Constitution. I'm incredibly proud Virginia was the 38th and final state needed to ratify the ERA, showing the nation that it's time for the ERA to be fully recognized. Women have waited long enough, and now we have a historic opportunity to ensure that equal rights, regardless of sex, are properly recognized as a part of the Constitution. As folks were at the U.S. Supreme Court earlier today, rallying for the ERA and for equal rights, I want you to know that I will always be by your side in this fight. I will always take every step needed to make sure the will of Virginians is carried out and the ERA is added to the Constitution as it should be. And my work to support women does not end there. Last year, I announced the completion of my project to end Virginia's rape kit backlog of 2,665 tests, which brought hundreds of victims and survivors closer to justice. And I fought hard to protect reproductive rights, submitting congressional testimony in support of the Women's Health Protection Act, reversed dangerous and incorrect legal advice from my predecessor that had threatened to close women's health clinics, and went to court to protect funding for Planned Parenthood, and so much more. I'm committed to doing everything in my power as your Attorney General to advance women's rights. Women have fought for centuries to have equal rights, and we've made so much progress, but we cannot let up now. Thank you all so much for your hard work, and let's continue onward.
All right, nice. Actually, that's a nice segue into our first discussion, which is about reproductive rights. Last session, the legislature removed some barriers to abortion access in Virginia, but with the U.S. Supreme Court set to hear a case this fall that could dismantle Roe versus Wade, reproductive rights in Virginia are not secure. What are your thoughts on how to safeguard access in Virginia? And would you be in favor of and support introduction of a Virginia constitutional amendment that would guarantee bodily autonomy for all persons, not only women, in Virginia? And I know that Dr. Moses has to go. So it's about a 10-minute discussion. We'll go back and forth. But Dr. Moses, would you like to start us off?
Thank you very much for the invitation. I would love to. I know that I'm speaking among friends here when I say this. Women's health, and especially reproductive health, is part and parcel of public health. I will fight every single day for women's reproductive health here in Virginia. And I apologize if I'm speaking quietly. The reality is that any attempt to limit a woman's access to an abortion in Virginia is an attack on her right to safe and adequate bare minimum health care. And I absolutely support an amendment to our Commonwealth Constitution to that effect. I know that we likely all share these opinions, but as an anesthesiologist who has taken care of women as a physician for the last almost 20 years, the fact is that I see it as my responsibility and my duty to work hard every day, no matter who you are, no matter what your background is, no matter who's taken care of you before or where you're going in your life. It is my duty to ensure that you have safe access to the best healthcare available here in Virginia. And so I will continue to do that work. I'm grateful for you giving me the opportunity to speak on this topic first, but the women in this room and many of the men who support them as well have been doing this work for a long time. And it is really my goal to learn from you the ways in which you've connected in your communities to ensure that when we talk to people about just exactly how necessary it is to have an amendment like this, they understand that our mission isn't to make people believe the same things that we believe. It's to make sure that each and every citizen of this Commonwealth has the same rights to basic health care. And that's exactly what we're talking about. This is basic health care.
Thank you. I'm going to open up to Delegate Hala Ayala. I know she has to leave in a couple minutes.
Yeah, I'm just trying to stick around because I was a little late getting on, but absolutely. I think an individual's decision to choose is based on, it should be very inclusive, that decision. Reproductive health care, and I agree with Dr. Moses, is health care, and that is how we look at it. In the General Assembly, we've seen attempts from our friends across the aisle to roll back our access to reproductive health care, amongst other things. So this year I was proud to be part of a study that looked at maternal health. Reproductive health care is not just only abortion care, it is prenatal care. It is all of these things that are inclusive of a reproductive health, reproductive system. And so as they are trying to roll back, insert trap laws, et cetera, when we look at what's happening on November 2nd, of course, I'm supportive of all the above initiatives. I've been a fighter and a champion and also an advocate for reproductive health care and an individual's right to choose. But this is on the line this November. Make no mistake, your voting rights, make no mistake, your reproductive rights, and make no mistake, democracy, and undermining the faith of it. And some of these things that are happening across the nation to recall governors, lieutenant governors, council persons, school board members. make no mistake on how you're voting this November and how we have to make sure that you show up. It's not just to talk about it, and we're not raising red flags about it, but an individual's decision to choose is at 74% here in the Commonwealth, and we must protect it. So with that, I think for me, it's a no-brainer as a candidate. I've always been a champion and advocate, but for each one of you, this goes beyond just how we feel about it. But this goes to the ballot box this November. And so please make sure that you tell your friends, if they haven't already done so, to register to vote. Vote like your democracy is on stake, your reproductive health care is at stake, your healthcare, your schools and your teachers, and all the progresses we have made. All of that can be undone in one election cycle.
I'm going to open it up to the rest of the candidates, or should I name names, or what do you want me to do? Let's see. Sara, would you? Or, Jenny, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just going to say that I agree with both Dr. Moses and Hala, and I would absolutely support that amendment to the state constitution to protect our rights to make decisions about our own bodies. What a dangerous precedent it would be to allow the government to make medical decisions for us. That is not something that we can allow to happen. And I will absolutely fight in every way possible to make sure that we maintain the right to choose our own medical decisions with the help of a physician for our own bodies.
Sara?
Yeah, I want to co-opt all of the other statements. I think that the perspective of a physician willing to fight for the rights of his patients to make their own decisions, the position of someone who's soon to be at the state level office to fight for a constitutional amendment. I think that we have to control our fertility for 30, 40 years. Reproductive rights and reproductive health is about more than just abortion and access to it, although that is an important part and needs to be protected. It's about access to contraception, affordable and variable. It's about prenatal care. It's about making sure that folks can have a healthy pregnancy the way they want it. So reproductive rights is about bodily autonomy and making our own decisions for that. It should not be, as Delegate Ayala said, that one administration can come along and completely dismantle the progress that's been made to protect our rights to make our own decisions about our own bodies. So a constitutional amendment, while it's a long road and it's a hard road, I think is one that is worth embarking on, because each person should be able to make their own decisions about their own bodies, and reproductive rights is just the heart of that.
Blakely?
Well, of course, I echo everything that has been said, but the only thing I'll add to the conversation is that women of color are overlooked time and time again, especially with reproductive health care. I'm someone who has had to fight tooth and nail for my own reproductive health care as a woman of color. And so I, of course, wholeheartedly will support the amending the Constitution, because not only does it affect women, it affects everyone. Everyone's reproductive health care is really important, and it's making sure that it's as inclusive as it possibly can be. That's my focus.
Annette? Oh, can you unmute?
I do this every single time. You would think after a year and a half of doing this, I've learned how to do this now. I just wanted to add to what Sara said earlier about contraceptives. We need to make contraceptives affordable for everyone. I would say very similar to capping copays for insulin and asthma inhalers, because and Blakely also mentioned this as well, as for women of color, access to reproductive health care, they have boundaries to that. No politician should be telling a person them about what to do about their reproductive health rights. And as Hala said, this election is especially crucial, especially if we lose the House of Delegates, the majority of the House of Delegates, and we lose the governorship. One of the first things they're going to be doing is they're going to be rolling back reproductive health care rights. And that's why I strongly support a constitutional amendment to protect reproductive health rights because of that fact. Because if it's not in the Constitution, it's going to make it really easy, just as I said, to roll it back if the other side takes the majority.
Delegate Hudson.
Thanks. Let me just add, while Delegate Ayala is with us, that this is one of those issues where it really, really matters who our lieutenant governor is. Sometimes people forget what the LG does, but their most important job is breaking ties in the Senate. And while I wish it weren't true, reproductive health care is one of those issues where not all the Democrats in Richmond are on the same page. And reproductive rights are more precarious in our Senate than I think all of us wish they were. And so that's why it's so crucial that we send a pro-choice champion like Delegate Ayala into that role, because we don't have a vote to spare on these issues in the chamber down the hall. We've done a lot of good work on reproductive rights in the last 2 years, but so much of it has been about tearing down bad laws that the Republicans put up. We still have a lot of work ahead of us to proactively protect reproductive rights and make reproductive care a reality for patients, because we know that access to healthcare is not the same thing as getting it. And so we still have so much work to do to fund and expand clinics and providers into every corner of the Commonwealth, because especially when it comes to reproductive decisions, travel time and all of those very practical logistics can mean the difference between getting the care you need and not. And the only thing that I would add, in addition to what Dr. Moses said, is that we don't just have a duty to the people and the patients in Virginia. We really have a duty to our whole region when it comes to protecting reproductive care, because Virginia is becoming a safe haven surrounded by southern states that are throwing up barriers to reproductive health care left and right. And so if we continue to see assaults on our healthcare at the federal level and more of those horrifying laws go up in state legislatures around the country, we will continue to see more and more patients seeking out the care they need inside of our borders. And so while it should be enough for us to protect the rights of the people that we serve, we're working hard for even more people than that right now on this front.
I apologize. I have to run. I want to thank everybody for allowing me to join you, and thank you for giving me an opportunity to speak. I look forward to seeing you all again, hopefully in person one of these years. Before I go, I do want to ask everybody to consider one cautionary word when we're talking about a woman's right to reproductive health. I think we all are aware that people are co-opting our language in refusing to get vaccinated. And this is very dangerous. I'm an ICU doctor. I see the results of this every single day when people who have refused the vaccine. And so talking about government mandated health is something we have to be very specific about, that when we're talking about a woman's right to choose, this is about expanding healthcare. It's about expanding access. And that we want to make sure nobody thinks that they can take our fight as a legitimate reason to go against public health care and refusing things like a vaccine that can actually protect people. Thank you so much, everybody. I really do appreciate it, and I apologize I have to run early. I hope you all have a good night.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr.
Thank you so
Moses.
much. Yeah. By the way, really great point. I was taking notes on that, thinking the very same thing. Expanding the rights is what we're doing. And actually, I would just like to put a plug in for birth control that can be given yearly. I mean, now it's 3 months. It's ridiculous. It's actually another barrier to people getting access. So I just think that should be legislation. The next topic we have is overcriminalization of girls. The increasing numbers of girls, especially Black and brown girls, entering the school to prison pipeline is alarming. Some school systems in Virginia have taken steps to address the problem of overcriminalization of adolescent behaviors by removing school resource officers from schools. And there's a movement building for Virginia to remove state dollars for supporting school resource officers. transfer jurisdiction of the Department of Juvenile Justice to the Health and Human Resources Secretariat, and ensure that any detention happens in small facilities within the communities the youth are from. What are your thoughts and ideas on decriminalizing adolescent behavior in schools and keeping youth, especially Black and brown girls, out of the school to prison pipeline? Do we want to start with, who wants to start? I see.
Start.
Oh,
I can
okay.
start.
I didn't know. Hala, sorry
Well,
if you're.
I'm going to leave you after this one, but I will just say this, you know, Black and brown students have been marginalized and criminalized within the school to prison pipeline, right? This is just the beginning of this conversation. You know, when we talk about ways that institutional racism has been embedded in our systems, we talk about how we prioritize that, right? And just the way we discipline, or the way we put out our policies, or you know, how we address our children in schools, especially our Black and brown children, you know, using coded language to, you know, policy setting and what that looks like and how it's targeted. You know, Black women, Black girls are 16% of girls in school, and 42% are receiving corporate punishment. And this is just the beginning. And 45% are expelled from school. So these are just, and I think 45% are also with one suspension, if I can recall all these numbers, don't quote me on it, but you know, and then some of them within this same scope are referred to law enforcement. I think this is the big conversation that we have to have with the school to prison pipeline, but how we have taken and weaponized gender within our school system, and how that has set the tone for the way we look, the way we interact, the way society views. There's so much intersectional conversations about race in America that we have yet to have the hard discussion about how Jim Crow and bird law still exist in various forms, to include school discipline within our institutions. You know, when you're talking about Black and brown women being labeled as disruptive or defiant, this is something that does long-lasting damage, not only if it's recorded and put into your school history, but labels you for life throughout your lifelong academic career, for lack of a better word. I just need one more cup of coffee. But, you know, it's the culture that has left so little room, the weaponization of our skin color for error, you know, so we definitely have to look at these systems. I know you're looking for a solution, but it is much more complicated than a statement. It is intention that we must do to look at all of our systems and put an equity lens to them and an equality lens to them. And so we've got a lot of work to do here in the Commonwealth when it comes to that.
Thank you. I see Annette is unmuted, so you want to start or continue?
What I want to add to that is for students with disabilities, if our children of color also have disabilities, they are also more likely to be disciplined and suspended. And I truly believe that we need more counselors in schools, and also more training with our teachers to recognize. I've heard, when I was running for Senate, I heard several stories from women of color with their children that the teachers were telling the son of a student, oh, well, I don't know why you're even trying to get an education. All you're going to end up being is a drug dealer and in jail. Or if it was a female student of color, it was, well, all you're going to do is just end up pregnant. So there's a lot of education that needs to happen, especially in our rural schools, to bring attention to this. And everybody said, this is a problem that's been ongoing, and it really needs to be addressed. Some of the legislation that's been passed over the last 2 years has addressed the shortening of suspension times, but it still doesn't address the problem of our children of color and children of color with disabilities being suspended or disciplined at higher rates.
Thank you. Sara?
Yeah, I mean, I would just add, I think that Delegate Ayala has really captured a lot of the issues that we need to address and why. I think that the only thing I would add is when it comes to school resource officers, I think it's a very similar issue to making sure that law enforcement is not in the wrong place and handling the wrong situations. Discipline in especially adolescent behavior shouldn't be by someone in a uniform, shouldn't be by someone who's supposed to be protecting the students, is my understanding of what that job is meant to do. So criminalizing women and girls, especially women and girls of color, in middle and high school is really less about the behavior of the students and more about the wrong job being in charge of discipline. So I think we need to also address.
I'm just going across the screen now, Jennifer.
So I think that having uniformed officers in the school is also ignoring the experiences that those children have outside of school with uniformed officers that we may not know about, traumatic experiences. Everyone has a story, right? We don't know what that's bringing up for them. I saw a video today that was posted from a group in Nelson County. There was I don't know how widely known this is. There was a child who was, I won't say it, he had 2 officers sitting on top of him in the school, this young teenage child. That is excessive force. There's no reason why it should take 2 officers to slow down a teenage child. This was also a child of color. Hugely problematic that we often see so many videos of those children being brutalized. The fact that we are still criminalizing people for the color of their skin is it's terrible, and it's something that we need to talk about frankly, and we need to work to create a system where that isn't happening anymore. And it's going to make a lot of people uncomfortable, but that's okay, because in the long run it will help keep our children safe.
Blakely?
So this is something that I grew up with, right? I grew up in PWIs, or predominantly white institutions. And so I am unfortunately painfully aware of being sexualized even as a young girl, just because of my skin color, and my intelligence is questioned, and it still was all the way up through, my undergraduate degree. It was still questioned. I had people come up and be like, why are you in this class? And I was just so confused. Well, you're here, why can't I be? So I'd say a lot of it, as what they've all said, it's breaking this trauma cycle. And a lot of that needs to be done through counseling services and mental health services, and not by law enforcement or a resource officer. We need to focus on the action itself. Anytime a child acts out, it's in response to something. They're trying to communicate something. And a lot of the times, these children don't come from homes where they know anything else besides maybe yelling. And so it's starting to break that cycle. And that goes with bias trainings for our teachers as well. Our teachers play a big role in how things are handled, and our resource officers, and making sure that there's enough counseling services or mental health services available.
Delegate Hudson?
Yeah, I would echo what Blakely said and say it to the specifics about the funding of school resource officers. I think it says an awful lot about how we disinvested in our educators, that we in so many ways have stripped them of the resources they need to do this kind of youth development well, and handcuffed them to really rigid disciplinary policies that don't serve students. 2 years ago, I introduced a bill that we passed that finally repealed the mandate that teachers and school professionals have to report even misdemeanors to law enforcement that happen during school, because everybody else in the criminal justice system has discretion, from officers to prosecutors to judges on up the system, but that teachers were the only ones who didn't have the liberty to say that a shove into a locker maybe doesn't get better if you send both those boys to the police. And so we have to be empowering the school personnel with the kind of robust training that Blakely's talking about, and then making sure that we're not asking officers to do work that they're really not trained to do either. I mean, so often when you talk in a community about potentially removing SROs, someone brings up a heartwarming story about how that officer plays a positive role in that school as a coach or a counselor or an educator or a mentor. And I think that that's just a sign that we need more coaches and counselors in our schools and not necessarily more cops.
Great, thank you. I just want to know the time is 7:55. Are we good to go, Charlotte, to keep going? Okay. We're running about 5 minutes. Okay. I can't hear you, but okay. Last discussion is treatment of transgender students. Around the Commonwealth, school boards are facing community pushback for adopting policies on the treatment of transgender students consistent with Virginia Department of Education guidelines as mandated by the Virginia General Assembly in 2020. Local school boards must comply by the 2021-22 school year to follow state law passed in 2020, meaning HB 145 and SB 161. Local school boards that elect not to adopt the policies will face civil litigation and associated liability costs. Tell us about the atmosphere around this issue in your district and your thoughts on how to address more equitable treatment of transgender students in our schools. Somebody want to start?
I'll start. And I will start with sharing that my oldest child is gender fluid. This is a very, very personal issue for me. They attend public school. They came out to us in the 4th grade. How great to know yourself that well and to feel that confident to come out to your family. And we've helped them navigate this through the Augusta County public school system. They're now in 8th grade, so for 4 years now. We have never had a problem. We've every school year, every transition, when we transition to middle school, met with the principal, guidance counselor, teachers. Let them know that pronouns are not an option. They will respect my child's pronouns, and we have worked together to find a solution for the bathrooms. There's never been a problem. They've never had a problem with people in their class. The children seem to actually be much more open to this than the adults in this situation. What has happened now seems to be that parents that were unaware that these children have always been in our schools are now finding another issue to be upset about. Our school board chose not to adopt. Even though it's actually already happening in the schools, and they're doing it to keep this loud, very vocal minority of parents happy somehow. We need to work to educate our communities to help people understand that LGBTQ people, trans people are here. They have always been here. They will always be here. And we need to make our communities more welcoming. It's also unfortunate that a lot of the loud voices at our school board meetings are people that don't have children in the school at all. And so we need to just work to filter out some of those voices, get to the real issue and help the children, make sure that we're still prioritizing the students in these situations and helping them to understand that they're safe, their safe space, let them know who are the adults in their school that they can go to when they need help.
Okay, Blakely.
There we go, sorry. No, I want to echo everything that Jenny just said. One thing that I am really proud of for my generation is how inclusive we are. And I hope to see that continue to spread as much as it possibly can. You know, now my friends are becoming teachers themselves, and I'm very proud of what adjustments they're making in their classrooms to make sure all students are comfortable with who they are and have a support system. Unfortunately, my district is incredibly gerrymandered per the usual with most of ours. So the district is very conservative, and we have not had the level of pushback that other counties have experienced, but I do know it is going to be an issue for our kids. So once again, it goes back to a lot of adult bias training, since I think the younger generations usually don't question something unless they're told to question it. So it's breaking a lot of habits among adults. And so I think if we could have general inclusive bias trainings for all staff in public schools, that goes all the way to the janitors. So really be as inclusive as we possibly can. It will start to break some of the cycle of trauma.
Okay. Sara?
I think that folks with personal experiences, I think folks like Jenny Kitchen need to be the ones who are leading these policies. I think they need to also be the ones who are helping to get that very vocal, angry minority who are finally waking up to the idea that these people are people and have been in their schools forever, to educate them. I think that the important thing is that students are allowed to feel safe at school, and students are allowed to feel that they are seen and accepted for who they are. Those are the most important principles. We need to figure out how to do that. And if folks who, as Jennifer said, I think that most of the kids and most of the people who were in the schools every day don't have any problem making these policies work. So we need to get the school boards to have a little bit more conviction and stand up for the rights of the students who are being persecuted by parents who don't know what they're talking about.
Annette?
What I think a lot of adults need to remember is your rights end when someone else's begin. We all know the case in Loudoun County about the teacher that refused to address a student by their preferred pronouns because he objected to it. It was against his religion. To me, that is just a cover for discrimination. And a lot of what's going on right now, I can go back to 20 years ago. I am the mother of a gay son. He didn't choose to be that way. He was created that way. If he could have chosen to be anything, he would have chosen to be straight, because it would have saved him a lot of teasing, a lot of bullying, and he wouldn't have been beaten up as an adult for being openly gay. So, as Blakely and Jenny have mentioned, it's not the kids who have the problem, it's the adults that have now been aware that our kids, our LGBT kids, have been around. They just didn't want to recognize them, and they still don't want to recognize them, but they are individuals. They need to be respected just like everyone else, and we need to keep that fight going, because no child needs to be discriminated, period.
Right, Delegate Hudson?
You know, it's been such a joy for me to experience as someone who grew up in a conservative high school
at a time where the gay and lesbian students that were my classmates didn't feel comfortable coming out when we were in high school. And now as an educator, to be in a classroom first week of school this week, and my students don't skip a beat before they introduce themselves with their pronouns, and they are all as comfortable and fluid with it as it gets. And just having seen that transition in my 15 years in education has really been a thing to welcome. And so, like everyone has said, this isn't about the kids, it's about the adults, and everything that we can do to make sure that they understand that the table stakes of education are making sure that everyone feels welcome, safe, and supported. That's the bare minimum that we owe anybody who steps in the door. And I think if that's where we set the bar and say, if you've got a problem with that, then maybe this isn't the line of work for you, then I think that's really where it should go. And I want to applaud our Albemarle County School Board, who has already taken the step to affirm that here locally, and hope that that is a ripple out from our from all walls from here. And also to remember that this is something, again, where we've got a lot of work and soul searching to do inside of Democratic ranks, that there are very blue, very urban places that would like to think of themselves as very far ahead of a place like Albemarle, who are not following through on this commitment. And so we've still got a lot of work to do to spread that good work around Virginia, and am so excited to support all our local leaders who got us there.
Hey, what I love about this is like having this opportunity to hear everybody's experiences and everybody's ideas. I have to say this because I just met with John Santowski, and if some of you remember, he was on the school board in Charlottesville a long time ago, and he mentioned that they passed a policy protecting, at the time it was lesbian gay rights. And I was saying that when I was on the school board in Charlottesville, we passed, the Equality Virginia's policy. So I just feel like this work just grows on itself, and it really is the adults to be talking to. So I'm grateful of everybody's ideas and thoughts. I know that we have some questions, keep generating them. And I know we have a video from our candidate, Governor McAuliffe. I think, right, Doug?
Hi, everybody. Terry McAuliffe, and I want to thank the Charlottesville chapter of the National Organization of Women for your great endorsement and support. Thank you. As you know, when I was the 72nd governor of Virginia, I was a brick wall to protect women's individual rights. As you know, I stopped the Republicans who wanted to shut down all 16 women's clinics. I vetoed every bill that would have defunded Planned Parenthood. Time and time again, I had to stop the extremism of the Republican Party while I was governor. Now I'm running against Glenn Youngkin, another extreme right-wing conservative. But as you just saw on that secret video that he got caught saying when he is governor, he will work and he will defund Planned Parenthood and he will ban abortions in Virginia. Then he goes on the tape to say, but we're not going to tell anybody, because if they find out, they won't vote for me. So we know what his true intentions are. This is a big election. I remind you, in 44 straight years, the party that wins the White House, the other party wins the governor's mansion. I'm the only one to break that curse. Of course, I won in 13, President Obama won in 12. But we need everybody out to vote. This is critical. It is a turnout election, and that's why the Charlottesville chapter of NOW is going to lead the effort. So thank you. Let's go. We got a big election ahead of us, and thank you for your support, and I look forward to working with you over the next 4 years to protect women's individual rights. Thank you.
So are we ready to go on to questions?
Yes.
Okay, great. Okay, we've got a few questions. I'd like to mention the first one. The recent IPCC report made it clear that this is our last chance to aggressively reduce our greenhouse gas emissions. What will you do as a candidate to ensure that Virginia leads the way to transition to clean energy by 2030? Could we have some comments on that?
I'll start.
Okay.
This is one of those where the biggest barrier to progress in the next Virginia decade is not Republicans, it will be Democrats. This is another area where the Democratic Party is not united in Richmond on a scientifically serious climate change agenda. We have serious barriers within our own ranks of confronting the corporate interests, the fossil fuel interests that currently dominate our negotiations over climate change. I've seen that firsthand in the House. You know it from the outside, but it's another thing entirely to see it with your own eyes, to watch really, I think, and we should put it in the strongest possible terms, the generations that are older than I am betray the ones who will inherit the planet for the generations to come. And so this is one of those where we can't be scared to say it in those terms, that any time that we have an audience with the more senior leadership members of the Democratic Party in Richmond, we have to be willing to ask really pointed questions about where they stand on climate change, and not to be told that every step in the right direction is enough, but that any kind of meaningful climate change progress means running, not walking from here.
Okay, anyone else like to comment?
Yeah, if I could just add, beyond supporting that, also looking at campaign finance reform is a big part of this. We need to make sure that our candidates, our legislators aren't benefiting from some of these relationships. We need to make sure that there's no corporation that is able to influence policy decisions.
Thank you. Sara, did you have something?
Yeah, I want to echo that. I think that it's important that we, the people want this. We understand that it's necessary for us to change the way we've been doing things. And it's important that we make sure that our leaders show up. I think that campaign finance reform is certainly one of the main avenues to end that undue influence that the energy companies have. But I also think we need to really lean into clean energy jobs and development of the skill set, and making sure that folks are open to economic development that highlights and makes clean energy an important part of our next generation of workers, whether that be technical skills and apprenticeships, or whether that be finding folks in research and development, because it has to balance that. It's going to be better for our environment, of course, for us to move in this direction, but it also is going to be better for our economy. And we need to get all of the Democrats on board, as well as bring along the constituents that will push back against those who are going to stop this progress.
Likely?
Yes, of course, echo everything that was just mentioned. A lot of it is going to be shifting our jobs towards clean energy practices, but it also includes prioritizing electrification of our public transportation. And I'm more focused on transportation, especially because out in the rural areas, it's a big challenge just in general for transportation, let alone anything that's environmentally friendly. So shifting that way, I was glad to see the school buses that just came into each county. That was a great start. But it's also joining things formally like the Transportation Climate Initiative that we currently are not a part of, but 12 other Northeastern states are, that focuses on reducing transportation emissions, things like that we can work towards as a state. And then, of course, also supporting safe farming practices. Once again, rural areas, we got to focus on that, and transitioning people to being more aware of what the farms are producing and how to test them regularly and create a more standardized testing.
Thank you. Annette, did you want to say anything?
The big issue in my district is solar farms. And in Spotsylvania and Fredericksburg, there was a huge solar farm put in, but the Board of Supervisors kind of overlooked the decommission part from the solar farm developers. What I would like to see solar farm developers do is provide assurances that they have funds to decommission these panels, which means not just okay, we're going to properly dispose of these panels once they're decommissioned. They need to show that they have the money in escrow that they can do this with. So our counties and the landowners, because this is an issue I know in Augusta County, when I was running for Senate there are a lot of farmers that would love to lease out their lands to these solar farms. But the biggest pushback they get is what's going to happen when those panels need to be decommissioned after 15 years. So I think that the developers, as I said, need to have money in, show they have money in escrow in order to decommission these panels.
Okay, I have a question that's a little bit off, a little different, and I'd like to ask it directly first to Blakely. Do you think we're going to be able to get young people to come out and vote in this off-year election? I mean, and I'd like to ask the rest of you, are you making efforts to go on to campuses or anything? Blakely, could you comment on that? Can your generation come out, get the wherewithal to get out and vote?
Yes, no, I think so. I'm very excited for hopefully a whole bunch of younger people coming out. I apologize, my cat keeps trying to interrupt the meeting. She likes to join. No, and that's a lot of what our campaign is focused on, is making sure that our younger people, literally starting in high school, as soon as you turn 18 or right before, that you are registered to vote, going to college campuses, making sure everybody's registered and knows where their precincts are. That's the other part. Do you know how to vote and where to vote? So making sure that everybody has that information is really important. I would say there's been a lot of frustration among the younger people in our Commonwealth about how politics has gone even all the way up to the presidency. And so we're trying to basically channel that frustration into action right now, whether that's knocking doors. Social media has been awesome so far for this. I have 12 interns who are high school and college age students, because I can't say no to kids who are so excited for change. And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to get everybody out, show how to get out. A lot of it is how. So please share instructions. We're about to start doing this in September because of early voting, how to fill out an absentee ballot and make sure that your ballot counts, so that even if kids are away at college, they're still civically engaged. Things like that really do matter. And then of course, a couple want to be poll workers as well. So that's really exciting to see. So yes, I think it's possible. You just need to make sure that we're capitalizing on the frustration and the angst that's there, and turning it into action.
Any other comments from anyone?
I would like to add that we have a teen outreach wing of this campaign, and we've had teenagers come out to canvass, making phone calls, text banking, writing postcards. They are very excited to get involved. This is their future that we're planning. They need to be a part of it. We need to be listening to them and engaging them and having them involved at every opportunity we have.
Anyone else?
Yeah, we had three college field organizers start today as part of our Charlottesville area student turnout project, and they are ready and raring to go. We know that voting is a sticky habit, and that once you do it once, then you're much more likely to stick with it for a long time, and that people who come of age in an era with high voter turnout tend to be stuck for life. And we've had a lot of people come of age, some not so young politically, in the last 4 years. And so I think a lot of them are here with us to stay for the long haul, which is fantastic. I think the biggest thing is to make sure that they continue to see the connection to state policy for all the reasons that we've been talking about, that you don't get to go back to sleep just because the White House changed. That in particular, in these off-year elections, these are the things that really matter more and more for your daily lives. So absolutely. And I think that a big part of that is continuing to meet folks where they're at in many different forms of canvassing, and allowing there to be youth-driven leadership about what that looks like. Representation matters too on campaigns, not just as candidates, but in the strategy roles, so that we can have 18, 19, 20-year-olds tell us how you reach their friends, because it may not even be text banking anymore. And so, I'm really excited to have those people on board so they can tell us how to talk to more people just like them.
Right. Annette, are you going to get the young people out?
in Orange County a year ago, one lady decided after she'd lost her job during the pandemic that she had all this free time on her hands and wanted to get the young people in Orange County involved in the political process. So she started an organization called Just Orange. Her name is Danny Rivera. They just celebrated their year anniversary. She has been instrumental in getting a lot of the high schoolers in Orange County to come out, also to vote. There is now at an Orange County High School Democratic Club. In Culpeper, there has been the Culpeper Youth, which is led by one of the city council persons who also happens to be a social worker. She has been really involved in engaging the youth in civic activities. So we're really, especially with Orange County and Culpeper County, reaching out to those teams to get them excited, because I'm doing this for them. I'm a boomer, but as I've told people, I'm doing this for the next generation, because I don't want to stay in office very long, because this is going to be their government, and they're going to be bringing new and fresher ideas, but I want to start the ball rolling for them. So this is why I'm doing this. This is why we're really trying to reach out to get young people involved, because as Jenny said, this is their future.
Thank you. Claire Kaplan has a question. Are you still with us, Claire? This is about the mental health system in the state. Let's see if she's.
Yeah, I'm here.
Can you say your question?
Sure. Let me pull it up. Okay. There it is. Okay. So most people are unaware that our mental health facilities for adults are not sex segregated. I'm the mom of a sexual assault and intimate partner violence survivor who's been institutionalized more than once because her trauma caused severe PTSD. Every time she was institutionalized, she was threatened with rape by other residents and then punished in the chair, which is the restraining chair. They leave you there for hours because she responded in anger. And she also was sometimes restrained next to the rapist. She left each time when she was hospitalized more traumatized. What ideas do you have to improve our state's mental health system?
Sara, could you speak to that?
Yes, I would be happy to. Mental health is a very personal issue to me. My mom suffered from bipolar disease and was hospitalized and struggled to maintain her active participation in her life throughout most of my adult life. The mental health care system isn't separate. It shouldn't be. It shouldn't be that mental health care is treated separately from physical health. It's all one place. It's all one body. The fact that we have segregated and sectionalized mental health and fed it with very little support so that it's overtaxed, underutilized, and people don't know what's available and people don't know where to go to help, and that help is not available when they do get there, is a crime. We need to drastically rethink how mental health is integrated into healthcare access in general, how people are trained to recognize mental health crises and to deal with those who are going through them at the moment, whether that be in the school system, in public, with law enforcement, and to create a new system of what happens when someone in crisis intersects with the public. That is a basic problem that is not going to go away just because people feel like it's not their problem to tackle. I think that Virginia's only one of many examples. During the pandemic, mental health care, self-care, the idea of, and then crises through mental health has become even more of a pandemic, I think. Folks have become to understand how desperate it can be when you can't find help anywhere and you can't get help anywhere. So now is the time for us to take all of the energy and all of the information and experiences that folks have had and marshal our resources. We have some really important resources coming down the pipe. I apologize if I'm skipping. My internet is unstable. Welcome to rural internet. Another thing we have to fix. But the mental health care system needs to be revamped from top to bottom. And that we can't wait any longer for that to happen.
Thank you. Does anyone else want to comment on this question?
I'll just add that in my day job, I work with adults with intellectual and developmental disabilities, often that coexist with mental health issues, sometimes leading to crisis. A huge problem that we have is that when people suffer from or are part of something that we don't understand and we don't want to look at, we put them over here so that we don't have to look at them and think about them. And we need to stop doing that. We need to, like Sara said, mental health is healthcare. We need to stop separating these things. We need to stop putting people in places where we don't have to look at them and we don't have to face these issues head on. And we need to work to create systems that help people continue to be a part of their community instead of hiding them away for our own comfort.
Thank you.
Can I just,
Blakely,
can I jump in real quick? I just want to say, take a moment and say, I am sorry for the treatment of your daughter. That is absolutely horrific. And no one should ever have to experience that repeatedly too. Never experience it, period, but also repeatedly. I echo everything that's been said. With my neuro background, we talk about this all the time. There is no separation. Your brain is another organ that can also be hurting, and especially from trauma. I think the pandemic has really kind of opened up more of a conversation about mental health and the need for it, especially for survivors of assault, because unfortunately the pandemic has also created more skyrocketing statistics for those assaults to happen. So I think now is the time to start actually enforcing stricter laws and standards for each of these facilities, because we have them for physical ailments in hospitals. It should be the same for our mental health institutions. And that's something that I think I can say with everyone here on this call, we will all work diligently to make sure happens.
You guys, I'm sorry. I want to respect everyone's time. And Charlotte keeps texting me. So I know that it's 8:26 and we had said we'd do closing comments 1 minute, but I just want to move us to 30 seconds. And I know Delegate Hudson didn't get a chance to just speak. So we can start with you to close us off. Great discussion, excellent issues.
Yeah, I would add really briefly that this is one of the problems where we also have to put our money where our mouth is, that it's not just about setting higher standards, but empowering our communities with the resources that they need to meet those higher bars. We have such a coarse set of options for mental health care in Virginia. It's either an acute crisis that lands you in a hospital bed, or it's a criminal crisis that lands you behind bars. And we need a wider range of options that allows us to meet people in the many different circumstances that include a mental health challenge. A lot like the person that we just heard about, it's because we've got too many people facing too many different kinds of challenges crammed into the same spaces that they're not being treated with the care and personalization that they need. And so I would just add, as we think about, what does our agenda look like going forward, there's a lot of projects like that await us, that so much of what we've done in the last 2 years, while critical, has been about getting Virginia caught up with the work we weren't doing while there were less strong reformers in Richmond. It's quick work to tear things down, but building things up takes more time. And we have a lot of building to do in the next couple of years. And so I think that's why it's essential that we send energetic and thoughtful and detail-oriented candidates like the ones we've been hearing from today, because it's the broad brush big ideas are only get us to so far. We need builders and doers and makers in Richmond who can stand up serious systems to confront all this work for the long haul. So I'm so excited to serve with these women and with Dr. Moses, who was with us earlier, and would just echo that how much they need your support, that all of us do, to head to the ballot box in November.
Great. Okay, we're moving to Sara Ratcliffe, 58.
Great, thank you. I have a personal and professional career in health advocacy. I spent 30 years working with state legislators across the country who show up for their constituents and their communities. Those folks taught me that being a state legislator is about making lives better, giving a helping hand to those in need, and working for every family to thrive. I believe personally that access to healthcare is a fundamental right, and it's certainly a great need for our communities here in the 58th District. I know personally that when access to healthcare is out of reach, it can spell disaster for a family. My experience losing 3 different parents and navigating their end of life journeys, most recently just for my mother-in-law this last spring, helped to reinforce the deeply held values that I hold of duty to home and family and community. That's what fed my commitment to run for the 58th seat and to change a 20-year incumbent who doesn't seem to care about many people that don't look like him. I'm ready to fight for those folks in Richmond, and I would ask for your support. You can go to saraforva.com and find out more.
Awesome. All right, we go to the 56, Blakely Lockhart.
Thank you so much for having me. I just want to say my generation and I understand the urgency of acting now. The legislation that's being created is going to affect us for the longest amount of time, and therefore we deserve a seat at the table and to be included in these conversations. The district that I am in is incredibly flippable. It just takes a lot of hard work, and that's what we're doing. People are really ready for a change, and people don't want an insurrectionist to still be in office. That's my opponent. So people are ready for a change. And so if you're interested in learning more, please check out lockhartfordelegate.com. Please don't hesitate to reach out to me with any questions, comments, concerns. I'm always here. And just thank you so much for having me.
Excellent. Go to the 30th with Annette Hyde.
Well, I just want to thank Charlottesville Now for this chance, this forum, and I am on a ticket with some of the amazing women for the House of Delegates, and Sally needs our help. We need to have her back. So that's why we all need all of your help in order to get there. You can go to my website, AnnetteServesVA.com, and learn more about me. And September, we really hit the ground running, because I've said it since 2017. We've all said it, but we really mean it this time. This election is the most important election that we've had so far. So much is at stake, and we cannot go backwards.
All right, and let's finish up with 25th, Jennifer Kitchen.
Thank you all for this opportunity this evening. It's great to answer questions with these wonderful women. I am ready to go to Richmond, second time candidate, running again. Most of you know that at the beginning of the pandemic, I was diagnosed with cancer and also an unruptured brain aneurysm. And I navigated our healthcare system as a rural Virginian in a really complicated time. And it gave me insight that I otherwise, and a perspective that I otherwise wouldn't have. And I'm very much looking forward to taking that experience, turning it into a positive one, and representing people from rural Virginia in a way that will change their lives for the better. I didn't survive cancer and a brain aneurysm to lose this election. So you can go to electjenniferkitchen.com and learn more about me and support the campaign.
All right, I think we'll have closing comments from Charlotte.
Sorry. Hi, I just want to say thank you to everyone for being here. Thank you to Amy Loffer for moderating and for Virginia for moderating the Q&A. And a special thank you to all of these wonderful candidates. I really, really appreciate the time you spent with us today. I know how very precious your time is now. It's in the heat of the campaign right now. So we feel very lucky to have you with us tonight, and we really appreciate all the work you're doing. And I encourage everyone to support all these wonderful candidates. Please donate to them, volunteer with them,